So, on to our next speaker, who's been traveling all around the world and is currently in Canada and possibly heading to Italy and was in Australia. And every time I speak to her, she's in a different country, so I can never keep up with her. So, Katara Sky, welcome, and it's beautiful to see you again. You've been on many of these talks and the Thunder. And again, there's lots of all of the website has got everyone's bio, and it's got all of the links, and everyone that's ever spoken is listed on the dragontalks.info webpage. So please do check them out. And many of them are giving discounts, and many of them have got lots of free offers. So do go to that page and scroll down. I know we're all in the century where we don't like scrolling. We go to the first page and we stop, but do scroll down and you'll see every speaker that's ever talked on Dragon Talks. All their information is there. Their beautiful smiley faces and all of their information. So, today, I believe you're going to be talking about what kind of dragon are you?
That's right.
Whoa, I'm excited to hear. So, yeah, please do share with us.
Thank you, Kev. And thanks, V, for that lovely, lovely presentation. I'm so delighted to always hear about the crystals and the dragons. So I've got only one of my crystal dragons here with me, but a beautiful soda light. And I've actually got so many of these crystal dragons. I love working with crystals, and I'm glad that you have guardians and messages for all of them. All right, so how about we just take a little bit of a breather and just come into our own energy again. Thank you, V. And if you want, you can turn off your screen, but how about just a little stretch? Because I know you guys have been paying really deep attention to V, maybe rolling your necks. I'm very much into embodiment work as well, and into qigong, and really being able to feel everything. So sometimes when we're just sitting all the time, if you need to get up and have a couple of shakes, do that. And also having V's beautiful energy, and maybe all of her dragons have come on in. So you can still hold the intention of any questions that you may have had, but also just holding that intention now as we shift into a different energy. Maybe as you consciously call in some of your dragon guides and spirit allies. If you've got any insights that you're hoping to have or gain, I love and I'm so grateful for all that Kev does to arrange and to organize all of us dragon lovers to be here. So thank you so much. Yes, I am traveling around the world. It's been a little bit of an adventure since the beginning of June. I'm going to super make it short, my background and history, but I'm born and raised in Canada, and left when I was 26. In 2010, I was called to go on this big adventure, and I went to the Middle East. So I have a background actually in corporate. I'm a chartered accountant, and I double majored in accountancy and finance. So a very, very different background to what I do now, and found myself in the Middle East working for one of the large audit firms, and there very soon after working for an airline. So I was really, really lucky to travel the world and had over a decade plus in corporate experience doing, very logical, analytical things until my own inner transformation happened in 2019. So it doesn't feel like that long ago, but it feels like eons ago. And if you guys are connected into the energies now, you're probably feeling that kind of time warpy, maybe timelessness. And that's apparently one of the ascension systems. I was watching one of the Starseed podcasts yesterday, and he said this feeling of timelessness is like being able to tap into our multidimensionality. So I'm definitely feeling like that, because these 5 years in linear time have gone by like this, and really realizing that your ability to transform, to completely change your life around, to heal is available to us much easier, much faster. I think our consciousness is also just different than where things are, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and many of you that have been on this path for a long time. So I've definitely had imposter syndrome. Who am I to come on the scene, for 5 years? Like I heard V saying that it's been at least 13 since meeting her first dragon. So I think some of you might feel that and feel like something's going on and hard to pin a finger on things. And I think that's the timelessness of nature right now, or being in something like, really in it. And it feels like, gosh, when are we going to get out? So I don't know if some of you are feeling that. There's lots of solar flare activity. I was man down yesterday. I could not even get out of bed. It was just really, really hectic. But we all experience energies differently. And that's also part of the reason I wanted to chat today. And this title came to me just 2 nights ago. I hadn't given Kev a topic, and they just came late at night when I was in that in-between state. And they're like, talk to them about what kind of dragon they are. And I'm like, okay, but maybe not even everyone identifies as a dragon. So I'm just going to speak to Kev and V just because I know them a bit more. And if others, want to pipe in, please do. So you can just type it in. But I actually want to know if you actually identify as a dragon, if you feel like you are a dragon. So just yeses if you want to give hands or type it in, because many of us are connecting to them and we really feel like they are guides, separate, outside of us. Look at all of the beautiful guides that V has been talking about, right? Like 64 of them. Could you be all 64? I mean, you might be. So here we go. Dina, yes, I recognize you. I think you're a speaker on the summit as well. Yes, soul origins. That's right. So there's many of us that are also feeling like we have had lives as dragon, right? Or perhaps, as some of my dragon teachers call it, we have our original blueprint as dragon. And so maybe it makes that it's much easier for us to connect to their energy. And one of my first shamanic initiations when I was dragonborn, I love it. Yes, I am a dragon. That's right. I usually don't lead with that. Okay. I don't say, hi, I'm Katara and I'm a dragon. But over here, I know that we're all safe to do that. We absolutely can. And there's so many of us beautiful dragons coming to learn about ourselves, coming to realize that that's who we are. But importantly, I like to emphasize that a lot of how I share, I like to relate it back to, and why do I care about that in my humanity? Why do I care about that in terms of who I am as a person? Because we have chosen to incarnate here as human beings, right? Like maybe we are also unicorn, maybe we're also fairy, maybe we can be all of those things. And I believe that we may be, because we're multidimensional. We have had lives as other beings, as non-humans. And then we have had lives as dragon. And as we come into that remembrance of it, as I say, I feel it's really important for us to stay grounded to, and how does that help me to be a better human? How does that help me to be more effective, more impactful in the influence that you can have as a human being, right? Tree, lion, dragon, none. And for many of us who have done past life regressions, and I do that work in my hypnotherapy training, as well as my shamanic work. And, Kev, I know as well, has done lots of past life. I think he has some group events. Really interesting to explore all of these, and super cool because we can gain these insights and wisdoms to why our dragon lives help us to be human, why our unicorn lives, why our fairy lives and elf life, all of these dimensions. And so our ability to perceive these dimensions and other lives, I think ultimately can help us to know what kind of human are we. So I know the talk is what kind of dragon are we, and I'm going to get to that. But what kind of human does that make us? And so similar to, even just saying like, how does our identity of where we're from, right? We started this chat with where's everyone from, just to know locationally. What if we then say, well, I'm American, I'm Canadian, I'm whatever? Like, what does that mean about us? How does finding our place help us to be who we are? And I think that discovering that as well as a dragon kind of helps us understand. And so how does that help me to impart wisdom? How does that help me to share with the world what being a dragon actually means? So I'm Katara Sky. That is my, I think that's my dragon name, actually. There's many people that say that dragons have 3-syllable names. It's not the first time that I've heard it. And then I had this really funny thing where someone tagged me in a Facebook post, and it was one of the other dragon speakers on the summit. I think Dean Bottles. And he made this huge post where he was burying some golden egg in Gaia. And he said that they named it Katara. And I was like, oh, that's exactly me. And that's exactly the golden eggs that I'm working with. So sometimes, when an energy is really present in the world, you're not the only one that's tapping into it. These dragon eggs, Kev's got a book and a huge trip in Rome all about the dragon eggs, but all of the dragons, there is no surprise that here we are in Year of the Wood Dragon in 2024, and everyone's talking about dragons. I had no idea that there are all these Facebook groups about all of these dragons. Okay. All right, so that's the beginning. I'm Katara. Yes, so now I am currently in Canada, moving to Italy. And I think part of that is definitely the calling of the dragons. So I do relate to dragons in many ways, guides, absolutely, presences within myself, but also in all of the ley lines and energies within the earth as well. So where I lived in the last 7 months, interestingly, happened to be right on one of the big ley lines that was going through Australia, the one that passes from Bali to Bairnsdale. And this town, it's like the smallest little country town. I'm like, why the hell did we come here? And I realized that it's right at the tip of where that line exits Australia. And according to, again, one of the other beautiful dragon speakers, Araya Anra, who talks about being one of the 12 dragons of Mu, exactly where I was the head of one of the female dragons. So there is no coincidence to the times and to the places that we're called to, because it can help you to awaken the dragon within you. Travels, being in certain places. And so now I'm being called to be in Italy. Yeah, powerful lines. I can't wait to go to Stonehenge. I'm like, all my sacred site stuff is like on the to-do list when I get to Europe. I'm being called to Italy. Apparently, again, there's this vortexing of this male and female energy over there, and the dragons are calling because apparently my baby dragon in my belly is wanting to be born on the lands over there. And I'm feeling that call. So yes, it's like, what synchronicities that I'm all into dragons. My branding is Awakening Dragons. And on the Lunar New Year this year, which was in February, I made a womb drum. So I'm a drum maker. I made a beautiful red womb drum and was really calling the soul of the baby in. And here we are. So baby wants to be born in Italy. And there we go. There we go. All the places and people that we meet on our path can help us to find the pieces of who we be. What is it that this dragon speaker is going to help me realize today in myself? What part of awakening with dragons is happening for me now? Because connecting with dragons, isn't just about how beautiful they look and which crystal we're going to work with, but awakening certain energies within you. So if we look at, let's say, the characteristics of dragon, and I want you guys to have a little, type it in the chat. Like, what do you think it means to awaken the dragon within you? So I'm going to share for myself. When I think of dragon, it's all about power. It's about heart integrity. It's about truth, honor, integrity. Did I say that already? It's about magic. They are the original alchemists and transformation beings. They are the keys to the mystical, right? Like, these are the things that I feel when I connect to dragon. When I say awakening dragons, it's not just the dragon guides, but they're those aspects of dragon within yourself. So what about you guys? Just pop in a couple of words. I think that I think each of these 64 dragons had something they represented, right? So those are the messages that came through for her. What about for yourself? When you're here wanting to connect with dragons, what do you want them to reveal for you? What do you want to awaken within yourself? Because ultimately, this is what it's about, awakening and finding pieces within yourself, birthing and protecting. Absolutely. The portal of birth is the portal of death. Don't forget that, okay? Yes, and awakening to probably the truth of who we are. I'm just having a read of some of the titles, and some of the things that you're naming, and they're absolutely in resonance with what I feel about dragons. So pay attention to each and every one of these dragon speakers, whether it's on Dragon Talks or Dragon Summit. Not one person, not one teacher, not one guide is going to have all the answers for you. So I think it's really important also to hold the intention of what it is that you're seeking in your healing journey, in the things that you're wanting to use in your power. So I'm just reading some of the things. Yeah, and supporting your embodiment, absolutely, of multidimensionality. So when you hold and you know what intention it is that you're working for yourself, then when you kind of open your field to, well, who can help me with that? And if it's specifically a dragon healer, a dragon channel, amazing. You're going to find the one that gives you a piece that you need. Okay, like everything that I'm sharing now, like, yes, I have some notes, but I realize I'm totally going off notes because this is what the dragons are telling me to say, right? To give that guidance that really comes from just me as a channel, me with the heart open to say, what do I want to tell people about dragons? And one of the main messages of this one, there were 3 topics I wanted to cover. Let's see if we get there. Is finding the pieces to uncover your total truth. Second was a little bit of touching base on the Oriental dragons, the Chinese dragons, because I feel, gosh, there's just no information about them. Everyone talks about all the other dragons. So I had to really go and deep dive, like, oh, what do we know about the Oriental dragons? And then thirdly, to actually tell you the kind of dragon I am. I am a matrix dragon. Okay, so I'm just going to leave you percolate with that word because it's only come to me actually this week as I was integrating different pieces of myself. So that's the intention of the talk. So really hold that intention. What do you want the dragons to transform for you in your life? For me, even before realizing that I had called dragons in, and I'm not going to actually share the full story of meeting dragons, I'm going to refer to, let me see, I wrote it down somewhere. I think it's episode 12 on my podcast, which is called Awakening Dragons. Episode 12 was actually with Kev, and we talked about us meeting our dragons. So if you want to go and look at that, go have a look. And I think I also talk about it in the Dragon Summit that just passed as well. So if you want to know how I met the dragons and how they came into my life, you can go there. But today is about the piecing together of the different truths as I was embarking on this dragon journey. So all the dragons that you've met. So can I have a little chat enter here of what kind of dragons you've met? So, rainbow dragons, crystal dragons. Clearly, we know there are crystal dragons. What about other kinds of dragons? I know that you've probably heard and seen so many of them in Dragon Thunder in the group. There are so many. Blue rose, beautiful. Winged dragons, right. So I'm going to continue talking, but I just want to see what kind of dragons that you've connected with. And so as I was discovering, so now I'm just going to go on the basis that I already know I'm a dragon, right? So I'm like, okay, so what lineage am I from? What kind of dragon am I? And so again, different teachers may have different lineages, like how we talked about the archetypes. That's right. And for myself, I was like, okay, but do I belong? Am I one of these gemmy dragons? Am I part of the white dragon family? And I definitely am. Right. So there was this knowing of, oh, I'm part of a white dragon family. I think Alessandra from Dragon Summit talks about white dragons. And I felt that resonance. Black dragons. Oh, they're connected to Archangel Michael, major guide, one of my first guides that came through. I must be a black dragon. Right. But then I started feeling into it more and I'm like, I'm really connecting to the element of fire. I'm super close to the elementals. A lot of my training was shamanic this lifetime, probably other lifetimes. Merlin's very mystic. In my first shamanic course, I remember the first major guide that came through for me, which is really just part of myself, is Phoenix. And then unicorn came, and then, I don't know, some other mystic creature. And I asked my teacher, how come I have so many of these mystical creatures? Everybody else has all the earth animals. And he said, you've just reincarnated more times than others, maybe on these realms, and they feel, much closer to you. So I was really feeling being a fire dragon. And then I said, but it's a higher vibration of the fire dragon. It's not that. Maybe it's a flame dragon. And then I had this session with, again, I've worked with multiple dragon healers and channels, and they said, your vibration's not quite of a flame dragon. I think it's like really supernova. Like, God, what did that even mean? What does that even mean? So really feeling into all of these different things as I was studying, I realized that I was actually studying aspects of myself. Yes, volcano. I love Pele. Like, I was really connected to Pele. One of the last drums I birthed was a big Pele drum, huge. Sophia, I've read the Sophia code ages before I even knew about the dragons. I also have a deep resonance with the angelic realm. But all of these, and as we connect into different dragons, and then we'll go for other creatures and beings as well, they all hold different energy. And because we're so multidimensional, they hold different aspects of ourselves. And so, what if we can be part flame or supernova dragon? What if a part of us really is just rainbow dragon? But not only the name, okay? Don't get caught up by the glamour of the name. Oh, I'm a rainbow dragon. I'm the Emerald Order of blah, blah, blah. And this is not to make fun of anyone, okay? Like, there's amazing dragons out there. This is for you to see. So what does that show me about myself? What does being a flame dragon or working with fire mean for you? So I realized that, let's say I'm just talking about, yes, a hybrid of multiple, absolutely. I'm going to get to that as well. So I really felt fire. Fire is like easy. I'm astrologically a triple fire. I'm a grand fire trine. So that means my sun sign, my moon sign, and my ascending sign is all fire. Okay, Phoenix was my first guide. So I'm all about the fire. So it was easy for me to embrace being a fire or a flame dragon because it's the aspects that are held by dragon and that have that, let's call it other archetypal energies of fire. So one thing that I point out that can help people sometimes when working with guides is learn from the archetypal energy. Learn from what does fire represent? Like, let's go back to that. And then what does dragon represent? And seeing how they can help you to get a bigger picture, of what it means for you. Yeah, water and fire. Interestingly enough, my Vedic astrology is all water. It's a triple water trine. So I don't know how that works. So I'm feeling into the dragons, and then I started thinking, but I really feel this pearlescent white. It's white dragon, but when I see my dragon, it's really pearlescent white, iridescent. And then I can see that the iridescent is rainbow. And so it was really evolving as myself, as I was evolving in my transformation and learning about myself. What does being rainbow mean? Holding all colors of light, being able to harmonize with everything. Maybe being a diamond dragon helps you to see that you're a mirror, a multidimensional mirror to others. So I'm just naming one little thing about each possible dragon. But each little thing that I was exploring really showed me an aspect of myself, because it wasn't like one kind of dragon was going to be the be all and end all. And so I did start getting a bit frustrated, even my human self, very frustrated with, well, what does that even mean? Like, how come I can't find my lineage? And so I don't know if you guys have ever done your DNA testing and all of that. We're always curious where we come from. Maybe we are curious to know where we come from so we know where to go, or really to own all our lineages and our mastery. So I do think that exploring the types of dragons and seeing where your all the elements, yeah, I see that. Seeing where you resonate and what you resonate with helps you to learn about yourself. So don't worry too much about, I don't resonate with those types of dragons, or I don't resonate with those archetypes, or I don't resonate, with how they look at dragons. Because everyone has different lineages that we're coming from, spiritually as well as, in human form. So in human form, as you can see, I'm Asian. And, if you look at zodiac, that's a whole different way of looking at our astrology as well, right? I'm very, as I said, connected to the elements. And so I didn't realize, but a lot of how I connected into spirit realm, is really like connecting to nature and connecting to the elements. And so I really wanted to explore, well, how come there's so little information about the Oriental dragons? how come I can't find as much? Because as much as, some of the Facebook groups have so much to share, I rarely hear us talking about the Oriental dragon. So I'm just going to share a little bit about it, just to share some knowledge, because maybe some of you might resonate with that as well, even if your human lineage isn't Asian per se. So has anyone connected to Oriental? I think I saw an Oriental dragon thing pop up somewhere. Yes, Guan Yin, absolutely. So I think we will get chance to do a bit of a transmission at the end. I'll say that now. So I've brought my drum, so we might do a little bit of a transmission and toning. And absolutely, I work with Guan Yin, and her energy is very present. In fact, if you listen to the podcast or the Dragon Summit, I think I talk about my huge back tattoo, which I originally went to my tattoo artist to say, I would like to have Guan Yin on my back. And then he made a really funny statement. He says, why would you tattoo a face of yourself? Yeah, it's true. I wouldn't. Anyway, so that's the story of my back tattoo. Okay, so Oriental dragons. I couldn't find a lot of literature. It's very interesting. There's a lot of, Wikipedia entries and things like that. But of the Asian dragons, I really actually was looking for books that were actually written by, probably Chinese or Asian people and then translated. And I did find a couple, and some of the key things I want to highlight. So Asian dragons, or Oriental or Chinese dragons specifically, usually they are four-legged serpent-like dragons. They are four-legged and serpent-like. They're usually very powerful symbols of auspicious power. And more often than not, I don't actually think they're ever related to being malevolent beings. So meaning, sometimes, unfortunately, in the West, we have lots of fairy tales and things where dragons are evil and, such terrible things we have to say of slay the dragons. Like, it's terrible how it's made its way into the fairy tales. But in the East, usually all the lore, Lore, in fairy tales is dragons are always auspicious. They are benevolent. They are related to usually the noble, and in particular to the emperor. So if you know anything about, like Chinese history, you'll see that emperors adorn themselves with golden robes. Their chairs and all their thrones and everything is all dragon-like. And in fact, in certain dynasties, it was actually forbidden to even associate with the symbol, because the symbol of dragon was just for the emperor, So these days, it's actually interesting because sometimes, because the dragons were on all of the flags, like the military flags and of the armies, the current government has often wanted to disassociate from that aggressive and quite military connotation of the dragon. So that's actually why they've gone for that cute little panda. But deep down, many, many Chinese are still using the term that we're the dragon's descendants, or if we look at the totem of a specific country, often China is still depicted as the dragon. So I think when I was looking at books on Amazon, and it was a book, I think, between Great Britain and China, and I think it was called The Lion and the Dragon. So, it's really interesting how these totems and these creatures are so actually immersed in our culture. And so the history of an Oriental dragon, I'm not sure if those that but it's actually usually comprised of 9 animals. And it's unclear of the exact origins, but many say that it's because of the different totems of the different tribes in China. So, for example, an Oriental or Chinese dragon will have, usually they'll say it has the head of a camel or a horse or a crocodile. Like a head of a camel, a horse, or a crocodile. Horns of a deer, ears of a cow, the neck of a snake, the body of a fish, the scales of a carp, claws of an eagle or a hawk, eyes of a demon or rabbit, and then paws of a tiger. So isn't that fascinating? And it makes total sense to me that I'm just getting sidetracked by these stories, these other lore. Absolutely. It's so interesting, like the lore, like where it comes from, these stories. So it makes total sense that, like China was very divided, and how each can still be represented in this glorious creature that then represented their country. And since I work so much with working with archetypes and working with stories, right? Because really being human is just being able to get into our stories and to unravel them so that we can create new stories. But being able to realize, what are the stories in our personal lives? What are the stories in our collective that are influencing how we see and how things are shaped? So there's also this other really beautiful legend about the carp, right? So the carp is like a fish. And so this carp saw the top of a mountain, and it swam upstream, not letting waterfalls in any way to stop it. And they say that as the carp was able to move upstream, that there was this mystical dragon's door, and that the carp became the great heavenly dragon. And so currently, still to this day, it is believed that several waterfalls in China could be the location of the dragon's door. And what's amazing is that this legend, right, is so deep in our culture that it's usually used as a symbolic representation of being able to surpass and being able to accomplish or exert great efforts. So for example, like when the scholars write their examinations and they pass, they're said to have passed the dragon's gate. They have passed the dragon's gate. So I think that, being able to examine the lore in our cultures, or like, let's say in your area, right? So like probably I'm going to say European dragons, even though I don't necessarily mean that, but like, like Celtic or Druid, or, like the Merlin, like that energy is so different than the lore and the story and the fairy tales from, let's say, the stories of the East. And because I grew up in the West, I actually have very little idea of most of the lore and the fairy tales of the East. Like I had to buy this book called Fairy Tales of China. And I was reading the titles and I realized I don't know any of these stories. I bought a deep dive once even to Guan Yin, because she was human and she has evolved over time. She was male and actually became female over time, in different traditions, to become how we know of her today. So it's sometimes really interesting to go back and really see how things have evolved, but that the energy of things probably hasn't very much. So I really resonate with some of the greater aspects of the Oriental dragon, about it being benevolent, being noble, and often about working, often associated with the elements, waters, clouds. There are stories of how the dragons live part of the year under water in the oceans, and at the equinox, when they change, they rise and they go to the clouds, and then they live in the clouds for the other half of the year. And as you know, in many of our creation stories and Indigenous and First Nation stories, it's always these kind of stories that help us to explain how things are, why nature is the way that it is. So dragons are often associated with the elements, water, clouds, living in the water. There's the 4 dragon kings, which is the 4 dragons of the 4 seas. And did you know that over 80%, apparently, I don't know when this book might have been written in 1922. I don't know if this has updated, but they say 80% of Chinese people actually believe in dragons. So, this is so deep in our consciousness about wanting to believe in the dragons, the unicorns, and the mermaids. And I think that I'm probably a little bit of all of those things. So see how, the Oriental dragons might resonate with you. Maybe it's simply being able to connect to the serpentine energy. So lately I've been working on my light language, and I realized that my dragon light language and serpentine was really getting entangled. Now, of course, as I'm unfolding it and working with it, I probably even couldn't discern that, but obviously I'm working with others, you know, who can help me, just like you might have others that help you to connect to dragons, to get messages, to see how they can help you, and all the things. So, in my search to deepen my relationship with dragon, I realized that actually I'm really connected to a serpentine energy. And maybe as I was in Australia, we have the rainbow serpent. And to me, serpent is like, you know, belly on the ground, really in it, right? Because if you think of dragon, most of the time we think of them as flying creatures. They're really up there. But I think that we have to be really reminded that we're here to be human, and we're here having an embodiment and an experience. And that means belly to the ground, and like the snake, it's just in it. That's, to me, a lot of that serpentine energy as well. So I don't know if that resonates with some of you, or why I needed to talk about Oriental dragons today. But as much as it is about me learning about a cultural part of me deepening into dragons, it just helped me to realize, look, there are all kinds of dragons out there. Feel what it is that you're learning from each of them. And as the truth reveals as to exactly whether you had a past life with them, whether you were one, and you're working through the stories of that in the current life. So I'm being called to kind of just talk a little bit about past life energy. Yeah, so yes, Cobra, amazing. I often feel serpentine, like I don't necessarily even differentiate whether it's, you know, snake, serpent, they're slightly different, but often I actually see, you know, like when I'm singing, it's like calling that cobra out and coiling, you know, and also connecting to our Kundalini energy, our Kundalini energy, or the feminine serpent and consciousness energy of Gaia. So there's all different ways that we can name things. And I think that's our very human mind of wanting to name things. So I think I had a point and then I have lost it, but we'll come back to past lives. So just about the dragons, there was a time when I was really connecting and wanting to, again, own more or deepen into my power. And I realized that shit, this whole life I'm working on power, working on coming back into power. And what had to arise, because that's what I think past lives can be, right? It's energy that's potentially trapped in other lifetimes that are now kind of playing out now. And I realized that I had to liberate a few of those past lives. And one of them that I very painstakingly and with grief had to go to was one in which I was a dragon slayer. I was on the wrong side, if you want to call it that. I was the one that was abusing and using the power of dragons, not for benevolent causes. And being in that energy and remembering it was so devastating, because obviously now in this life, it's about working with them in a different way. So I really had to feel that grief and forgive myself and forgive all maybe the other times that I've lived lives in which, you know, you did not fight for the light, and that you were, let's just say, on a darker side. Okay, because everything is relative. Yeah, we're all light workers, but I think that we all are, you know, it's just we all have different karma and different timelines and different things that we're doing. So if you're struggling at any point to connect to dragons, or any of your guides for that matter, really see it's like, well, how far back can I tie that energy to? What is in the way of that? Because if you're working on power, when have you abused power? If you're working on confidence, when have you given it away? If you're working with speaking your truth, when have you been restricted and you have not been able to speak your truth? Because I can assure you that somewhere in your past, whether it's in your childhood or in your past lives, those energies are going to be there. So I just wanted to speak a little bit about past lives and that. I will comment on what Jolene is just saying now, what kind of dragon you are, what the dragon looks like. So remember that we all have different, well, I would like to tell you that we all have different clairsenses and how we perceive things. So it's not always going to be visual. You're not always going to see things, even though, you know, I'd love to and tell you that, you know, my dragon's purple and has 4 wings and has, you know, ember eyes. And, you know, I can't tell you that. And actually, this is a nice thing to lead into what I mean by I'm a matrix dragon. So when I first worked with Araya, who yeah, helps people to connect and merge with their dragon self. When she, and as skillful and many years that she's been working with dragons, she couldn't actually tell me anything about what my dragon looked like. She's like, it's so big, your dragon, that it was like the sky. It was like the huge, backdrop energy. And that was like, more than 2 years ago. And so I had a recent session with her because things were converging, a few aha moments. And we realized that, or she even realized, I realized as well that, sometimes they're in these new energies as well. We're able to tap into consciousness, remembrances, and also new kinds of dragons. So I don't know if I'm a new kind of dragon. I just think that I'm sure that there are others that are like me as well. And so, what I mean by matrix dragon is rather than, let's say, being the form itself, so being, let's say, fire or being air, like if you want to use elements, I am like the space, right? So, the fifth element is ether or akasha or spirit, depending what lineage you ascribe to. The fifth element is spirit. So, it is the space that holds everything actually together, it's the backdrop energy. And it is matrix, because if you look at the definition of matrix, and I know I actually love that movie, but sometimes we have bad or not poor connotations of that word matrix. But matrix, if you look at the definition, is a surrounding substance within which something else originates or develops or is contained. Part two, matrix is like the womb. Yeah, definition three. It's also where a rock or a substrate, for example, that crystals grow on. So that's what the matrix actually means. So if you take that into the context of, well, okay, so I'm not quite the fire element itself. I am not any of these other elements. Let's say I'm going to use that as an example. I am the fifth element, the space that is able to contain and to allow form to take shape. And so that might sound a little bit weird, but it's necessary, right? You need to have it. If you did not have ether, if you did not have space, if you did not have akasha, then you wouldn't have anything where form actually originates from. Yeah. And so as soon as we said matrix, I'm like, what I could see was like, if you think of how our neural pathways are all linked, and you've probably seen some digital designs where it's like they all light up, but they're all connected, like by nodes or parts of intersection. And so that's how I kind of see my dragon form is like, I'm like a network, okay, or something that touches upon every node, or at least is connected to every other point. And so the first words that came through when I was tuning into how am I going to answer that? What kind of dragon am I? I wrote, I am one and I am many. I am the matrix dragon connected to every dragon. And just like that neural network, it's like I'm kind of not quite that or that node, but I can feel every other thing existing within me. And I think that's why I feel that, well, I resonate with the rainbow and the white and, the fire and the crystalline and all of these things. Thank you for hearing me. All of these things, it's like I can just touch upon everyone. So that's why when everybody speaks about dragons, there's parts of it that are true that I can really feel. Maybe that's closer to me, in resonance, in lineage. But that because I'm connected to everything, that I'm the space that holds it all, I feel like, well, it's all true. And they all are true. If we go back and rewind, maybe all the way back to, we are all one anyway, then of course, why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we feel that everybody's truth is actually a possible truth? And even as I was reflecting, exactly how I experienced the dragons, and I'm going to comment back to, I think, what Jolene was saying, I wasn't seeing my four-leggedness or my wings, like it's like a feeling. Oh, I can feel like, so I use a lot of embodiment work, and you might try that when we do a short transmission now. Like when I feel dragon, I allow the energy to move through me. I feel its serpentinous. I feel its flow. I can know that that's how air moves around me, how the fire feels kind of around me. So don't worry about needing to know what your dragon actually looks like. if you can't hear it just yet, if it doesn't speak to you yet, my main sense is claircognizance and clairsophiance, if you've heard of that. It just means like you have a knowing and the ability to translate that intellect. Actually, it's more wisdom. It's in you, right? We are multidimensional. It all exists within you. And all of these beautiful practitioners and beings, dragon channels, healers, mystics, and all of the things, they have different masteries to help you to come into some part of yourself. Some part of yourself. And so I'm going to come back to that question of, so what does it mean? So why does what kind of dragon I am impact on what kind of person I am? And so as much as we know, well, if I'm an outgoing and I don't know, confident speaker, then hopefully I can impart to others, to teach them, to share with them, to imprint on others how also to be confident and outspoken speakers. I'm not saying I am. So the kind of dragon that you are, so if I'm a matrix holder and I'm the backdrop that allows all to come into creation, more likely than not, the kind of way that I help people, no matter how I choose to deliver it, the vehicle that I deliver. I help people make drums, I hold sacred circles, I do mother blessing ways, I do one-on-one sessions. It doesn't matter what you call it in your humanness. But in all of those, who you naturally are is going to come through. I will naturally help people to weave parts of themselves together, to come and find that cohesion, because I'm the thing that holds people and holds creation. I am the womb that allows people to birth themselves over and over and to connect to multi-dimensional aspects of themselves, if that makes sense. I've never explained it like that, but that's what's coming through. So I feel that no matter which guide we're talking about, here we're on Dragon Talks, but I don't always talk about dragon. I have corporate clients as well, right? So no matter which guide, which archetype we're working on, if you're connecting to your fairy self, your angel self, you want to be able to see, how does that come into my humanness, those traits of being to be, so dragon, strong, transformational, magic, power, all of those things. Most likely you're going to be helping to impart those to the people that you help. So I guess in my piecing together of myself, coming to know that I am this kind of dragon at this moment, because that might change and I might evolve into some other being that, like dragon never seems to disappoint. It just goes deeper and deeper. It helps me to unravel even more of how can I help people? How does me being a dragon help you? And hopefully it is to help people to bring things together. Okay, so I'm going to do a little short transmission. I know it's 3:53. I am conscious of time. And I want to say that, this is how my last course of the year before I'm going to focus on being a mother is Heart Song. And Heart Song, which is going to be in a month, is exactly that, is helping people to connect with different guides. And I work with my team of just 7. I said, who am I going to work with? And these are the 7 that have been with me for ages. Archangel Michael, I'm not going to name them all, but Archangel Michael, Guan Yin, Dragon, of course, Mermaid, Phoenix are just some of the energies that we might have even talked about. But how to use those archetypes and stories so that we can see ours and come into a more heart-aligned expression, into that eloquence of our expression, into who we are and what we choose to do with it, right? Like we're always changing careers and how we express. So how do we come into that heart-aligned expression? So I'll ask Kev to drop some links later. I've got actually a free contest I'm running, free, fully paid tuition, just until Lionsgate, which is in 4 days. Let me see the drum. Yes, I'll let you see the drum. So copy link. I'm going to drop it in here in case others need to leave, but this is the form for the few. So this is my horse drum. It's actually not mine. It's actually my brother's. All of my drums are in the shipping container to Italy. I have many, many drums, most of them kangaroo, goat, other things. But we'll just do a very, very short transmission. So hold your intention of maybe even just one question that you're asking Dragon. Hopefully not a yes, no. And I'm just going to make a bit of sound, and how I invite you to use sound is to let it tell you a story, let it tell you the answer. And even though it's short, it doesn't matter how much time we have. Be clear and hold the intention. And just see how my sounds make you feel. Amti yan yan sa Jesus. Amti yasa. Oreki atu yaki antum oyasai yanta oesan yanta Orienta, Orienta, Oyashu, Orienta, Oyashu, Yesu. And hold that intention, because today is actually also the new moon. And let it emanate from your field, wide and far. And invite your dragons to help you. Invite spirit to be collaborating and co-creating with you. Washiata, rukiasa no o yashiata yansam. Just wrap all of that intention up and gather it in your heart. Place it there. And just take 2 more breaths and let it move over your body. Uryashiana eyasata washyati. And trust and know that your guides, your higher self, perhaps your dragons, are with you. Trusting does not mean that you need to see, hear them. You just have to know that they are there. Siata rietiasha. And rest that trust and intention in your heart. Whenever you're ready, you can come back to your awareness. Deep breath in. And exhale. And you can pop back on whenever you're ready. Now, I know that I have been gathering heat in my body for at least the last 30 minutes. Usually that happens when I'm doing a clearing session. And I'm like, oh, I want to take this off, but it's like so fucking hot. So whatever it is, you know, I say before you start manifesting your new moon intentions or what you're working towards, you've got to release, let go of beliefs, let go of what you think you know about dragons, about anything. Okay. So, I'm super happy to answer questions. I know I didn't actually prompt anyone to ask questions, but if we do have time and if people want to stay on, either comments on what you felt or if you have specific questions, because I know I touched upon a lot of different things and I was speaking really fast. I think because the dragons just had a lot that they wanted me to get through. So let me know. So Kev, is it okay to take a couple of questions or do we need to end it like now?
No, if people want to hang around, I'm happy to hang around. So yeah, any questions you've got? There's a couple of people with their hands up. Dina's got a hand up.
Oh yes, I've seen Dina for a while. Yes, Dina. Is that intentional or just faulty hands up? All right, we'll come back to Dina in case she does, but I've also got, is it Mireille? Is that how you say your name? Please unmute.
Oh, I couldn't Oh, I couldn't
Yes.
unmute myself for a second. Sorry, I didn't mean to throw off. And you know what's so funny? I'm gonna just go back down because now I totally forgot what my question was. Oh, it was a comment that in like the last 2 days, I've been receiving from someone all these golden Oriental dragon images, like for 4 or 5 days. And it prompted me, like, I had received a print of a dragon right after I had it all the time.
Yeah.
And I've had it all the time. I got it somehow from my from someone in my family. But after I had it in my possession, and so I always was wondering, why do I have so many artworks or pieces of, craft with golden oriental dragons on it? And I wound up inheriting it. And
Mm.
so I've been asking, like, what is going on with me and the Oriental dragons? And then he started talking about, like, there's all these connections and these questions that you ask. And it's funny because I feel like I have so many different dragons that are in my field that all want to get known, but I never knew the questions to ask. And you
Mm.
totally, I want to re-listen to this because I feel like I can have a whole journal now of just what the dragons want to say and communicate. Anyway, so
That's
it was
beautiful.
more like um like there's so many things that we're all around doing our own thing, and I really appreciate your how you shared your story. And that's I didn't really have a question. I had one earlier but I forgot. So
It'll come whenever you're ready. Thanks, Dina, for sharing that. And yes, maybe it's time to weave some of that Oriental, let's just call them Oriental mastery into you because it's there. It's like knocking on your door. So if that feels right, or just tune in yourself because I know that you do. Thank you for sharing, Mirai.
Hello, I like to thank you all to be together and to share all this energy. I have the feeling it's like really a group and we can share all these energies together. But I can feel also this is around me like I have dragons, but it's like a clan, like family.
Yes, yes.
They just like, yes, very nice. But and even I have to talk about because 2 times I could hear the 13, the number 13 here. And I know for the moment it's very important. 13, we have the 13 grandmothers, we have the
Mm,
13 skills. They said if they come together, the new world can start here.
mm,
And I I like to know if you know something about the 13 dragons as well.
mm. The number doesn't mean anything to me per se when you say the 13, but I feel like it has more significance for yourself. So when you connect to your family of 13, it feels like they're more your tribe. And I don't think they're all dragons. I think there might be other, like, I'm just feeling that. It's important for your piece of the puzzle in the new earth. Okay. So everyone has different missions. We are all here to bring different things. So maybe when your 13 guides or dragons or pieces of your soul come together, you may have more clarity on what that means. So I think it's really for you. The 13 dragons are for you. Does that make sense?
Okay,
Yeah. So
thank
start
you.
with the first one. I don't know how many you've gotten into, but it feels like it's for you. So just like I was saying, different people are called to work with dragons and other guides in different ways, and they're all here with very specific missions. So like I say, I'm here to help people to weave things together to put it. Yeah, so when you've got your 13, your tribe, maybe that means that's when we'll do some work together because it's like, all right, so I've got the pieces. What do I do with them? But I think the 13 is relevant for your journey. That's what I'm feeling intuitively.
Okay, thank
Ah,
you.
here we go. And Beverly has commented, so maybe she knows a bit more. The Earth is the 13th Emerald Dragon. Yeah, I have a bit of goosebumps in that as well. So, look, different perspectives. That's why we need to stay open to receiving everyone's wisdom. Everyone has different things to share, and everyone can give you that aha, you know. that comes from a Zoom chat on dragons.
Thank you, and I'm grateful, thankful to be all together. Sometimes I living in the mountains, I cannot put the image and the sound, but it's nice
Yes.
just to be all one.
Yeah,
Thank
beautiful.
you.
And often when we're connecting to the dragons, this is just a comment for everyone. I often feel they're collective. It's never one coming. It's often like, you know, like I just feel them all around. So maybe some of you also feel that. Is that Elle or is that Eli? I'm not sure.
Hi, it's Elle.
Hello.
So I was wondering, because we did mention, like which dragons are you, and just like coming into that awareness, maybe even personally or just as a collective. Do you feel as if dragons are, and being dragon, it's something that is born into you, is like passed down? Like, do you feel like your child's gonna have that dragon energy?
Oh,
and
my
lineage
dragon.
because of
My
you?
baby is definitely a dragon.
Right.
I mean, like, never mind that it's born in the year of the dragon, but I'll say just another short little thing. Like, when I was in Japan, so that was like not long ago, maybe, I don't know, a month ago, I was like hardcore getting downloads. I'm like, oh, my baby's connected with the water dragons. And then I would go to the lake and I realized, oh, there's some story about this lake, you know, being protected by the dragons as well. So sometimes it's like if you have your mind on something, you're going to start seeing more of that thing, right? That's a natural, maybe that's a psychological thing as well. But I feel like, you know, our DNA, you know, whatever percent is able to be mapped or whatever, it's like 3%. And all of the rest of it, well, what is that? You know, like it's all of our past and all that is imprinted and encoded in us, in our divine blueprint or gold print, whatever you want to call it. So I do think that probably all of us to some degree have dragon. And because I feel like dragons are part of creation, so if we all emanate and you know, have left and came from source, then of course we're going to have some dragon codes within us. It's just a matter of how much is there, I suppose, or how many times you might have chosen, well, let me be dragon again. Oh, I'm going to try out being human. I don't know. You know, like I'm talking about it in a very human way, but I think all of us can tap into dragon codes. But not all of us in this lifetime are meant to do something with it or remember their dragon self. But I do believe that all of us can connect to the dragon codes and have it within us. Maybe Kevin V can comment too, but that's what I think.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
You're so welcome. Any other questions? Drum journey, yes. Thanks for sharing all the links. And yes, I'm going to come to you in a moment, Clifford. If anyone wants to check out my program, I have 2 more spots that I'm totally gifting away, but you have to tell me what transformation you're seeking for in your life. And that closes in 4 days. Clifford?
Yeah, I'd like to ask about the ley line network.
Mm-hmm.
So, some people say that there's a new grid system coming online. So is there a new one, or are we supposed to repair the existing one?
Great question. I'm definitely not a ley lines expert, but what I feel when you ask that, I don't think like the old ones are going anywhere. It feels like, you know, that's the grid in which our maybe Earth or Gaia, or, you know, it's kind of on that network and grid. But there certainly is new architecture that's now kind of being laid on that foundation. I feel like there's a lot of work being done on the original ley lines and grid work, and there's, you know, tons of grid workers, right? But I feel like new architecture, which to me also feels like, well, that's part of building out New Earth, whatever that means to you.
Yeah.
So New Earth, as we build it for ourselves and how we choose to live as people, well, you know, the Earth is part of it. The Earth is a conscious being, right? Gaia is consciousness. So is she not ascending? Is she not, you know, having new architecture that is being formed?
Yeah.
So the way that I look at architecture or ley lines or our field around us, if we do a bit of healing or we're doing work, we're kind of either clearing some stagnant areas within our field, so in our geometry and our architecture, or we're repairing or we're activating lines that, you know, they're there, but they're just not online. So I think I guess I could see that parallel with Gaia as well, right? So if she's got a divine blueprint and then the potentiation of what she can be, I feel like that's what's coming online. You know, it's like the new, just like we are thinking new. We have to build new pathways in our ways of thinking. I think that grid lines are the same. So I'm not an expert on grid lines, but that's what I'm getting as information when you ask that. If we're capable of consciously evolving and therefore we're impacting our foundation and our architecture and activating things to come online all the time, then why is that not the same for any conscious being? And that includes Gaia. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I think the dragons will help us to understand how Gaia is doing that.
Yeah, yeah. And again, you can find more information. I'm not an expert in that, but the dragons were the original holders of the grids, so they say. All right, so it's not necessarily information I've tapped into myself. Like, I do feel dragon energies in the earth. When I feel earth energy, when I bring up earth energy, especially when I do it in my qigong, right? Qigong is just energy cultivation. When you're aware of nature's energies and you're aware, like when I say, hey, earth energy, you know, I want to feel you, that's how I feel them. It's like dragon-like, like it's serpentine, like our own internal kundalini energy. But everything in us is reflected out in nature as well. Our reality is reflected to us. And so I do feel it's dragon-like energy in those ley lines. So they're the original grid keepers. So I hear as well, this is more Araya's work, but the grid is apparently passed over or being passed over to the Lyrans now to hold. You know, it's not my main field of work, so I don't know, but that's hopefully that gives you some things to look at.
Yeah, thanks very much.
You're so welcome. Andromedan DNA. Yes. I don't know how many strands are DNA. I used to be really curious about that. I'm like 144, and then I saw like 144,000. Like, who knows? You know, just know that it's not the 3% that's been mapped. We have so much more potential. All right, so I don't think there's any more questions. Maybe V or Kev, do you have anything else you want to sign off before we close this beautiful session?
I just want to say thank you to you, beautiful speakers. This has been full on and amazing, and I'm sure everyone's going to want to watch the replays. And as you always know, these always get put on YouTube. I turn them into a podcast, and they'll be in the Dragon portal, so they'll be shared in the next couple of days. I've put the links in again for these beautiful speakers. Do contact them, do ask them lots of questions, do sign up for their amazing courses, because you'll only be kicking yourself if you didn't. Get rid of those like I can't afford it thoughts and the rest of it. You need these courses because they're going to expand your mind. Please go and buy all their amazing books and all their oracle cards and all the things they do, and check them out. And thank you, both of you. Every time I listen to you two, my mind always like it expands and it never shrinks back to the small human size that it is. So thank you, both of you. If anyone got any last questions? If not, let's just send them both lots of love. Press that reaction button. I want to see a page full of hearts. Come on.
And thank you, Kevin, for holding the space for all the dragons and all the beings that, you know, connect with the dragons to come through. That's always, always appreciated, for having this safe space for all of us dragons.
Thank you,
Wasn't always
Kev.
safe.
Thank you, Kev. Thank you, Katara. That was beautiful. I wanted to share with you the story about the dragon in Japan and the water. I love that story when you shared it on Facebook. That was beautiful. And thank you, everyone, for joining us live on the call. It's so wonderful to share with people where you can see your beautiful faces as we share.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, Yumiko, about the dragons in Japan. That's right. Japan's a very interesting place for the dragons, isn't it? I mean, they all are. Clearly, there's dragons everywhere. You can't go anywhere without bumping into them. But
That's
once
true.
you connect, you know, they're just everywhere. So it's normal. It's normal.
Exactly.
All right, beautiful people. Thank you so much. I'll see you at another talk or somewhere online. Thank you so much.
We'll see you in Italy then.
Thank you.
Yes. Bye. Ciao.
Thank you, everyone. Have an amazing rest of your days, mornings, afternoon, and evenings, and I'll see you all next time. There
Bye.
you go. Bye. Bye.